She humiliated me at the altar, so I ruined her reputation. Now, before you judge me, let me paint you a picture of what happened. 4 weeks before my wedding, I thought I was living the dream. Beautiful fiance, dream house, steady jobs, and yes, we were even expecting our first child. Then one Tuesday afternoon, I came home to find half my stuff missing and a note that said she was at her grandmother's house in another state. No explanation. No goodbye, just gone. I learned I was victim number 3 of a years-long con. But let me start from the beginning, when I was still blissfully clueless about what was coming. The perfect life that never existed. 28 years old and sitting in my pristine suburban kitchen, scrolling through wedding vendor emails like some kind of matrimonial genius. The granite countertops are spotless, the mortgage payments are current, and my fiancée is upstairs getting ready for another day at her accounting job. Life is so perfect it hurts, and I'm thinking I've really cracked the code on this whole adult thing. Let's call my fiancée Sarah, because her real name deserves to be buried 6 feet under. Sarah and I had been together for 1 year, and I was convinced I'd hit the relationship jackpot. She was smart, ambitious, and had this way of making me feel like I was the only guy in the world who mattered. We'd moved in together after 8 months, which felt totally natural and not rushed at all. Looking back, I was basically a golden retriever who thought every stranger wanted to be my best friend. The house was our pride and joy. A 3-bedroom colonial in a neighborhood where people actually wave at each other. Little did I know this perfect facade was her stage set. We spent weekends picking out paint colors and arguing over whether we needed a smart thermostat. Sarah had opinions about everything, from the throw pillows to the brand of dish soap we bought. I thought it meant she was invested in our future together. Really, she was just a very thorough interior decorator with commitment issues. Both our careers were humming along nicely. I had a steady job in IT support, the kind where you fix other people's computer problems and pretend to care about their email difficulties. Sarah worked at a mid-sized accounting firm downtown, handling books for small businesses. She'd come home with stories about difficult clients and office drama, and I'd listen like some kind of supportive boyfriend Hall of Fame winner. We were pulling in decent money, splitting expenses 50-50, building what I thought was a solid financial foundation for our future. The wedding planning had been going on for 6 months. Sarah had spreadsheets for everything, guest lists color-coded by family relations and timeline charts that looked like military operation blueprints. The venue was booked, the caterer was locked in, and everything else was falling into place with clockwork precision. I was mostly there to nod and write checks, which seemed like the perfect division of labor. Then came the pregnancy announcement. Sarah walked into our living room one evening with a little gift bag containing a baby onesie that said, "Coming soon," in little letters. I stared at it for a full 10 seconds before my brain processed what I was looking at. We weren't exactly trying, but we weren't not trying either. Sarah had this glow about her, this excitement that made me feel like we were about to start the next chapter of some beautiful love story. The timing seemed perfect, almost too perfect. The baby would arrive about 6 months after the wedding, giving us time to enjoy being newlyweds before becoming parents. Sarah started talking about converting the spare bedroom into a nursery, about cribs and strollers and all the gear that apparently comes with tiny humans. I was already mentally calculating college funds and Little League fees, planning a future that stretched out ahead of us like some kind of suburban paradise. My family loved Sarah. My mom would ask about her first every time I called, wanting updates on wedding plans and how she was feeling with the pregnancy. My dad, who barely tolerated most people, actually seemed to enjoy her company during family dinners. My sister was planning to fly in from California for the wedding, already excited about becoming an aunt. Everyone was invested in our success, rooting for us like we were their favorite TV couple. The wedding was 28 days away. The final head count was confirmed, and my tux was hanging in our closet like a promise waiting to be fulfilled. Sarah had started doing practice runs of her hair and makeup, taking selfies and asking for my opinion like I knew anything about wedding aesthetics. The rehearsal dinner was planned, the honeymoon was booked, and I'd already written my vows 3 times trying to get them perfect. Looking back, I was like a farm animal being led to slaughter by the world's most patient butcher. Every sign pointed to happiness. Every detail fell into place with suspicious ease, and I was too busy counting my blessings to notice the knife being sharpened behind my back. Sarah was orchestrating this whole thing with the precision of a Swiss watchmaker, and I was just standing there admiring the craftsmanship. The joint bank account was healthy, our credit scores were solid, and we'd even started talking about refinancing the house to get a better rate. Sarah handled most of our finances because she was the accounting expert, and I was happy to let her take the lead. She'd show me spreadsheets and reports explaining where our money was going and how we were building equity. I felt like we were winning at life, accumulating all the right assets and checking all the appropriate boxes. Friends would comment on how happy we seemed, how we'd figured out the secret to a successful relationship. Other couples would ask for advice like we were some kind of relationship gurus. Sarah and I would exchange knowing looks, playing the part of the perfect engaged couple who had it all figured out. We were everyone's relationship goals, the standard other people measured their own partnerships against. The baby stuff started arriving. A crib from my parents, a stroller from Sarah's sister, tiny clothes from friends who couldn't wait to meet our little one. Our spare room began filling up with all the equipment required for modern parenting. Sarah would spend evenings arranging and rearranging everything, nesting like some kind of domestic goddess preparing for the arrival of our perfect child. Everything was lined up like dominoes, each piece perfectly positioned for maximum happiness and stability. The career success, the dream house, the loving families, the growing baby, the approaching wedding. It was all so beautifully coordinated, so carefully planned, so absolutely doomed to spectacular failure. All until Tuesday afternoon when the script flip-flopped in the cruelest way imaginable. The great disappearing act. I walked through the front door at 5:47 p.m., same time as always, expecting to smell whatever Sarah had planned for dinner. Instead, I'm greeted by the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. The house feels different, like when you walk into a room after someone's been arguing and everyone suddenly stops talking. I call out her name and get nothing back except my own echo bouncing off the walls. Her car isn't in the driveway. No big deal. Maybe she stopped at the grocery store or got held up at work. I pull out my phone and dial her number, ready to ask what she wants me to start for dinner. The phone rings once, twice, 3 times, then goes straight to voicemail. That's weird. Sarah always answers her phone, especially when I call. She's one of those people who treats an unanswered phone call like a personal emergency. I try calling her office. The receptionist tells me Sarah left at her normal time, around 4:30. So where is she? I'm standing in her kitchen, staring at the coffee mug she left in the sink this morning, trying to piece together a mystery that doesn't make any sense. 20 minutes pass, then an hour. I'm starting to pace around the house like a caged animal, checking my phone every 30 seconds to see if I missed a call or text. Nothing. I try calling again, and this time it goes straight to voicemail without even ringing. That's when she finally calls back. I answer before the first ring finishes, ready to ask where she's been and why she's not answering her phone. But Sarah's voice sounds different, flat, like she's reading from a script written by someone who's never experienced human emotion. She tells me she's at her grandmother's house in Ohio, 3 states away. Just like that, no explanation about why she drove to Ohio without mentioning it, or how she managed to get there so fast, or what kind of emergency would require her to drop everything and flee across state lines. I'm trying to process this information while also wondering if I've somehow fallen asleep and this is just the world's most boring nightmare. Then comes the part that makes my brain completely short-circuit. Sarah says she doesn't want to get married anymore. Just like that. 28 days before our wedding, with 150 people planning to attend, with deposits paid and a baby on the way. She's calling me from her grandmother's house to cancel our entire future. It's like being told you've been fired via text message, except the text message is about your entire life exploding. I'm stammering questions into the phone like some kind of malfunctioning robot. What about the wedding? What about the baby? What about the house and the joint bank account and the life we've been building for 2 years? Sarah's responses are shorter than a bad haiku. She's not coming back. She can't do this anymore. She needs space. The conversation lasts maybe 3 minutes before she hangs up, leaving me standing in our kitchen, holding a dead phone and wondering if I've accidentally wandered into someone else's disaster. I try calling back immediately, straight to voicemail. I call the grandmother's house, a number I've never dialed before, but somehow have memorized from Sarah's contact list. No answer. I leave a message that probably sounds like it was recorded by someone having a nervous breakdown, because that's exactly what's happening. Day 1 turns into day 2. Still nothing. I'm calling Sarah's phone every few hours, leaving increasingly pathetic voicemails that range from confused to angry to pleading. I sound like a guy who's been dumped by text message and can't accept reality. Each voicemail is a little masterpiece of bewilderment. Me trying to make sense of a situation that defies all logic and human decency. I call in sick to work because I can't focus on helping people with their email problems when my own life is disintegrating in real time. I'm sitting on our couch, staring at wedding planning spreadsheets on my laptop, wondering if I should start canceling vendors or wait for Sarah to come to her senses and explain this whole misunderstanding. The house feels like a museum dedicated to a relationship that apparently never existed. By day 3, I'm starting to feel like I'm living in some kind of psychological thriller where the main character slowly realizes his entire life has been an elaborate hallucination. I keep checking my phone to make sure it's working, calling friends and family members just to confirm that other people can still reach me. The silence from Sarah is so complete it's starting to feel intentional, like she's conducting some kind of experiment to see how long a person can survive without answers. I'm not eating much, not sleeping well, and definitely not showering as often as I should. The mirror shows me a guy who looks like he's been hit by a truck, then backed over by the same truck, then asked to pay for the truck's repairs. My family keeps calling to ask about wedding details, and I'm running out of creative ways to say I have no idea what's happening without admitting that my fiancé has vanished into thin air. The grandmother's house excuse keeps bothering me because it makes no sense. Sarah has never mentioned any emergency involving her grandmother. In fact, she's barely mentioned her grandmother at all, except to say they exchanged Christmas cards and birthday wishes. Now suddenly she's driven halfway across the country to provide urgent grandmother support. It's like claiming you need to rush to Antarctica to help your pet penguin with tax preparation. Friends start reaching out with wedding-related questions. The caterer wants to confirm the final head count. The photographer wants to discuss timing for the ceremony. The rental company needs someone to sign for the tent delivery. I'm fielding these calls like some kind of wedding coordinator for an event that may or may not be happening, trying to buy time while secretly wondering if I should just start canceling everything and cutting my losses. The worst part is not knowing what I did wrong. Sarah didn't give me any explanation, any hint about what changed or what triggered this nuclear option approach to relationship problems. I'm replaying every conversation from the past few weeks, looking for clues I might have missed, signs that this was coming. But everything seemed normal right up until it wasn't. 3 days of complete radio silence. 3 days of me slowly losing my mind in a house that suddenly feels like a crime scene. I'm starting to wonder if Sarah actually exists, or if I've been having an elaborate conversation with my own imagination for the past year. Then I hear something that makes my heart jump. A cold return and cryptic goodbye. A car door slams in the driveway on day 4. I'm practically sprinting to the window, hoping to see my fiancé looking apologetic and ready to explain this nightmare. Instead, Sarah walks toward the house like she's approaching a crime scene that needs efficient processing. She enters without knocking, which feels strange since this is her house too, but her body language makes it clear she doesn't see it that way anymore. She nods at me like I'm a neighbor she barely recognizes and heads straight upstairs. No hello, no explanation. No acknowledgement that she vanished for 3 days while I questioned my sanity. It's like watching a robot programmed to complete a specific task with maximum efficiency and zero human interaction. I follow her upstairs, scrambling to figure out what to say to someone acting like a stranger wearing my fiancé's face. Sarah is already in our bedroom, pulling suitcases from the closet and packing her clothes. She folds everything with mechanical precision, creating neat squares that fit together like a fabric puzzle. I stand in the doorway, watching her dismantle our shared life, one perfectly folded shirt at a time. The silence is suffocating, so I try breaking it with actual words. I ask what's happening, why she left, what changed between Tuesday morning when she kissed me goodbye and Tuesday evening when she called from Ohio to cancel our future. Sarah keeps packing like I'm invisible. She moves from dresser to closet, pulling out work clothes and casual outfits with the focus of someone trying to break a packing speed record. I ask about the wedding, about the baby, about the house and joint bank account, and 150 people expecting to watch us get married in 24 days. Sarah pauses for exactly 2 seconds, looks at me with glass eyes, and returns to packing. It's like trying to have a conversation with an attractive mannequin programmed to ignore everything you say. Watching someone pack up their half of your shared life is torture that should be illegal in most states. Sarah takes her coffee mug, the one saying world's best accountant that I bought last Christmas. She packs the ceramic owl we found at a flea market during our first weekend trip. Every item going into those suitcases is a memory being deleted, a piece of our relationship carefully folded and removed from my life. She moves to the bathroom, clearing her side of the medicine cabinet like she's performing surgery. Toothbrush, face wash, birth control pills, prenatal vitamins. Wait, she's taking the prenatal vitamins. For a moment, I think maybe the baby is real and she's having some pregnancy hormone crisis that will resolve with proper help. But her clinical handling of everything, including the vitamins, makes me wonder if anything about our relationship was ever genuine. I try a different approach, asking if we can at least talk like adults. Sarah stops packing long enough to look directly at me for the first time since walking in. Her expression is completely blank, like someone switched off the part of her brain handling human emotion. She tells me there's nothing to talk about. Just like that. 2 years together, and there's nothing to discuss. It's like being told your favorite movie was actually a really long commercial for something you never wanted. The whole scene feels like watching someone perform a boring magic trick where the person you love disappears and gets replaced by an efficient stranger who happens to look exactly like them. Sarah moves through our bedroom like she's following a checklist written by someone who's never experienced feelings. Pack clothes, check. Pack toiletries, check. Ignore desperate fiancé, check. Complete personality transplant, double check. She finishes in the bedroom and moves to the living room, collecting her books and decorative items. The throw pillows we argued about, picture frames with photos of us looking happy, the succulent plant she insisted on buying to make the place feel homey. Everything gets packed with the same emotionless efficiency, like she's clearing out an office after someone got fired. I follow her around the house like a lost puppy, trying to understand how someone can flip a switch and turn off 2 years of shared history. Sarah was never the most emotional person, but she wasn't a robot either. She used to laugh at my jokes, get excited about weekend plans, cry during sad movies. Now she's packing up our life with all the passion of someone doing warehouse inventory. The worst part is how normal she looks. Same face, same hair, same way of moving around the house. But it's like someone reached inside her head and unplugged all the circuits that made her human. She's going through the motions of being Sarah, while clearly being someone else entirely. It's the kind of performance that would win awards if it wasn't happening in my living room and destroying my life. After 2 hours of this bizarre packing marathon, Sarah loads her suitcases into her car and drives away. No goodbye, no explanation, no acknowledgement that she just dismantled our entire relationship while I stood there asking questions that apparently don't deserve answers. She waves through the car window like we're casual acquaintances who happen to run into each other at the grocery store. I spend the next day waiting for some communication. A phone call, a text message, maybe a carrier pigeon with a note explaining what just happened. Instead, I get an email. An actual email. After 2 years together, after planning a wedding and a baby and future, Sarah breaks up with me via electronic mail like I'm a subscription service she wants to cancel. The email is 3 sentences long. She can't be with me anymore. She wishes me well. She hopes I understand. That's it. No explanation about what changed. No apology for the wedding chaos. No mention of the baby we're supposedly having. It's the kind of breakup message you'd send someone you met on a dating app and went out with twice. Clinical, impersonal, and completely insane. I read that email 50 times looking for hidden meanings or secret codes that might explain how my fiancé turned into a packing machine. Overnight. But the silence is driving me crazy, and I'm running out of rational explanations for this complete personality transplant. Time to start making some phone calls and see if anyone in Sarah's family can shed light on this mystery. The sister's clue and the forbidden mother. Sarah's sister Jessica picks up on the second ring, and I can tell from her voice that she already knows something is wrong. She sounds cautious, like she's talking to someone who might explode at any moment, which is probably an accurate assessment of my mental state at this point. I explained what happened, trying to keep my voice steady while describing how Sarah disappeared for 3 days, came back to pack like a robot, and then broke up with me via email after 2 years together. Jessica listens to the whole story without interrupting, which is unusual because she's normally the type of person who comments on everything. When I finish, there's this long pause that makes me wonder if the call dropped. Jessica finally speaks, and she sounds genuinely confused. She tells me she has no idea what's going on with Sarah, that her sister hasn't called or explained anything about why she suddenly decided to blow up her entire life. This is weird because Sarah and Jessica talk almost every day. They're those sisters who share every detail of their lives with each other, from work drama to relationship problems to what they had for lunch. The fact that Sarah disappeared without telling Jessica anything is like finding out the sun forgot to rise this morning. But then Jessica says something that makes my detective instincts start tingling. She mentions that maybe I should try calling their mom to see if she knows anything. She gives me the phone number without me even asking for it, like she's been waiting for someone to need this information. I write down the number while my brain starts processing what she just said. This is where things get interesting in a really disturbing way. Sarah has always told me that her mother is completely out of the picture. Not just distant or difficult, but actually dangerous. According to Sarah, her mom is an abusive alcoholic who made her childhood a nightmare. Sarah claimed they haven't spoken in years because her mother is too toxic and destructive to have any contact with. She painted this picture of a woman who was so harmful that cutting her out completely was the only way to have a healthy life. I've been with Sarah for 2 years, and in all of that time, her mother has never been mentioned as someone who might be contacted for any reason. When we were planning the wedding, Sarah said her mom wouldn't be invited because she didn't want that kind of drama on her special day. When I asked if we should at least let her know we were getting married, Sarah got upset and said her mother forfeited the right to be part of her life when she chose drugs and alcohol over being a decent parent. Now Jessica is casually handing me their mom's phone number, like it's perfectly normal information to share. She's not saying anything about abuse or addiction or why this might be a terrible idea. She's just giving me the number and suggesting I call. Like their mom is a regular person who might have regular insights into her daughter's behavior. The contradiction is so obvious it's practically glowing in neon lights. I'm sitting here with this phone number, trying to figure out why Sarah would lie about having an abusive mother unless she had some reason to keep me away from the woman. It's like being handed a puzzle piece that doesn't fit anywhere in the picture you've been putting together, except now you're wondering if you've been working on the wrong puzzle this whole time. The more I think about it, the more things start to feel wrong. Sarah never talked about her childhood much, but when she did, the stories were always vague and dramatic. Her mom was terrible. Her childhood was difficult. She had to overcome so much trauma to become the successful person she is today. But she never gave specific examples or details that would make these claims feel real. It was always just general statements about abuse and neglect that sounded like they came from a textbook about dysfunctional families. I was starting to feel like a detective who's been investigating a case based on evidence that might have been completely fabricated. Every thread I pull seems to lead to another lie, another contradiction that doesn't make sense. Why would someone lie about their own mother being abusive? What kind of person invents family trauma for no apparent reason? And why is Jessica acting like calling their mom is a perfectly normal suggestion? My brain is doing that thing where it tries to rationalize information that doesn't fit. Maybe Sarah and her mom reconciled recently and Jessica knows about it, but Sarah hasn't told me yet. Maybe the abuse story was exaggerated and their relationship isn't as bad as Sarah made it seem. Maybe. There's some perfectly reasonable explanation for why the supposedly dangerous mother is now being presented as someone I should call for information. But deep down, I'm starting to suspect that I've been fed a steady diet of lies for 2 years, and I was too trusting to question any of it. I believed everything Sarah told me because why would someone lie about their family being abusive? What would be the point of inventing trauma and dysfunction unless you were trying to hide something even worse? I'm staring at this phone number like it's evidence in a case I didn't know I was investigating. Part of me wants to call immediately and get some answers. Part of me is terrified of what I might discover if I start pulling on this particular thread. Once you start questioning one lie, you have to start questioning everything. And I'm not sure I'm ready to find out how deep this goes. But I'm also desperate for answers. And right now, Sarah's supposedly abusive mother is the only person who might be able to explain why my fiancé turned into a stranger overnight. Jessica clearly thinks calling her mom is a good idea, which suggests that either the abuse story is complete fiction or their family dynamics are way more complicated than Sarah ever let on. I pick up the phone and start dialing before I can talk myself out of it. Some conversations change everything, and I have a feeling this is going to be one of them. The phone starts ringing, and I'm about to find out just Sarah's mom picks up on the third ring, and her voice sounds completely normal. Not slurred, not angry, not like someone who's been battling addiction for years. She sounds like any regular mom who's surprised to get a call from her daughter's fiancé. I introduce myself and explain that I'm trying to understand what happened with Sarah, why she suddenly left and won't talk to me. There's a pause, and then Sarah's mom says something that makes my entire world tilt sideways. She tells me I'm lucky number 3. Lucky number 3 who fell for Sarah's game. At first, I think I misheard her, because what she's saying doesn't match anything Sarah ever told me about their relationship. But Sarah's mom keeps talking, and every word she says is like a sledgehammer to my understanding of reality. Sarah has done this before. Twice. She finds guys who are stable, decent, and financially secure. She moves in with them, plays the perfect girlfriend, gets them to fall in love with her, and then claims she's pregnant. She plans elaborate weddings, lets the guys pay for everything, builds this beautiful fake future with them. Then, right before the wedding, she disappears. She runs to her grandmother's house, claims the guy was abusive, and plays the victim until the dust settles, and she can start over with someone new. I'm listening to this explanation while my brain tries to process information that sounds like it came from a really bad reality TV show. Sarah's mom tells me about victim number 1, a guy named Mark who Sarah dated for 18 months. Same pattern. Moving together, fake pregnancy, wedding planning, disappearing act. Mark lost $12,000 in wedding deposits and spent months wondering what he did wrong. Victim number 2 was David, who lasted 2 years with Sarah. Same game, same fake pregnancy, same grandmother escape plan. David lost even more money and had a nervous breakdown trying to figure out how someone could fake a relationship so completely. And now I'm victim number 3, sitting in my kitchen getting a masterclass on manipulation from the mother of the person who just destroyed my life. Sarah's mom explains that Sarah cut her out of her life specifically so she couldn't warn the victims. Sarah told everyone that her mom was an abusive alcoholic because that kept anyone from talking to the one person who knew the truth about her pattern. It's like discovering that the person you love is actually a professional con artist who turned emotional manipulation into a career. The fake pregnancy thing hits me like a freight train loaded with concrete blocks. Sarah's mom tells me that Sarah has never been pregnant, not with me, not with Mark, not with David. She uses fake pregnancy tests, fake doctor appointments, fake ultrasound photos she gets from online forums. She studies pregnancy symptoms and acts them out like she's auditioning for a medical drama. The prenatal vitamins in our medicine cabinet were probably just regular multivitamins in a different bottle. I'm trying to wrap my head around the idea that someone would fake a pregnancy for months just to make a con more believable. It's not just lying, it's psychological warfare disguised as a relationship. Sarah spent weeks talking about baby names, nursery colors, and parenting philosophies for a child that never existed. She let me get excited about becoming a father, let my family get excited about their first grandchild, all while knowing it was complete fiction. Sarah's mom explains how the grandmother fits into this whole operation. The grandmother is a very religious woman who believes in helping family members in crisis. She doesn't know about Sarah's pattern because Sarah tells her that each guy was abusive and she had to escape for her safety. The grandmother takes her in, gives her shelter and emotional support, and helps her get back on her feet. The poor woman has no idea she's running a halfway house for con artists between jobs. This whole thing is so elaborately planned it makes my head spin. Sarah has turned relationship fraud into an art form, complete with fake family trauma, fake pregnancies, and fake emergencies. She's got backup stories for every situation, explanations for every inconsistency, and a support system that enables her without knowing they're enabling her. It's like discovering that your girlfriend is actually a professional magician who specializes in making your money and sanity disappear. The mother tells me about Sarah's methods in detail that makes me feel like the world's biggest idiot. Sarah always dates guys for at least a year before moving in because that builds trust and makes the relationship feel solid. She always insists on joint bank accounts because that gives her access to their money. She always pushes for expensive weddings with lots of deposits because that maximizes the financial damage when she disappears. Every romantic gesture, every shared moment, every plan for the future was calculated to extract maximum resources before the inevitable exit. I'm sitting here realizing that I've been living in a scripted performance for 2 years. Sarah wasn't my girlfriend. She was an actress playing the role of my girlfriend. Every laugh, every kiss, every conversation about our future together was just her doing her job. She studied me like a scientist, studying a lab rat, figuring out exactly what I wanted to hear and then delivering those lines with Academy Award level conviction. The financial exploitation is even worse than I thought. Sarah's mom explains that Sarah specifically targets guys who are financially stable, but not wealthy enough to easily absorb the losses. She finds men who work steady jobs, have good credit, and save money responsibly. Then she systematically drains their resources through shared expenses, wedding costs, and joint accounts. By the time she disappears, her victims are usually broke and financially devastated. Sarah's mom sounds genuinely sorry for me, which somehow makes this whole revelation even more surreal. She's apologizing for her daughter's behavior like Sarah is a natural disaster that she can't control. She tells me that she's tried to intervene before, tried to get Sarah help, but Sarah just cuts off contact and finds new victims. The mom feels helpless watching her daughter destroy innocent people's lives, but she can't stop something she can't predict or prevent. The conversation lasts about 20 minutes, but it feels like hours. Every detail Sarah's mom shares adds another layer to this nightmare. Sarah has fake social media accounts to research potential victims. She studies their interests, their family situations, their financial status before making contact. She creates fake stories about her past that are designed to generate sympathy and discourage too many questions about her history. By the time I hang up the phone, I feel like I've been hit by a truck, then run over by the same truck, then asked to pay for the truck's gas. I've spent 2 years building a relationship with someone who was essentially a professional liar, conducting a long-term financial and emotional heist. The woman I thought I knew never existed, and the life I thought we were building was just an elaborate stage set designed to separate me from my money and sanity. The complete meltdown and financial ruin. I hang up the phone and just sit there staring at the wall for about 2 hours. My brain feels like someone put it in a blender with concrete mix and hit the puree button. I keep replaying every moment of our relationship, trying to figure out which parts were real and which parts were just Sarah doing her job. Spoiler alert, apparently none of it was real, and I'm about as good at detecting con artists as a goldfish is at doing taxes. The physical breakdown starts almost immediately. I stop eating because food tastes like cardboard mixed with disappointment. Within 2 weeks, I've lost 15 pounds, which sounds great until you realize it's the depression diet where you survive on coffee and existential dread. My clothes start hanging off me like I'm a scarecrow whose stuffing fell out. Friends keep asking if I'm sick, and I want to tell them yes, I'm sick of being the world's most gullible human being. Sleep becomes this mythical thing that other people do. I spend nights lying in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering how someone can fake love so convincingly that you build your entire future around it. When I do manage to fall asleep, I have dreams where I'm back in the relationship, everything is normal. And then I wake up and remember that my whole life was basically a very expensive episode of a really cruel reality show. Work becomes a complete disaster zone. I'm supposed to be fixing people's computer problems, but I can't even fix my own life problems. My boss calls me into his office after I spend an entire day staring at a broken printer like it holds the secrets of the universe. He wants to know if everything is okay at home. and I have to explain that home doesn't really exist anymore because my fiancé was apparently a professional relationship terrorist. The look on his face suggests this excuse doesn't appear in the employee handbook. My family starts getting angry, which adds another layer of awesome to this whole situation. They've bought plane tickets, booked hotel rooms, and taken time off work to attend a wedding that's not happening. My mom calls wanting to know what's going on with the catering, and I have to explain that Sarah vanished like a magician's assistant, except instead of reappearing, she just took my money with her. My dad, who never liked talking about feelings, suddenly becomes very interested in discussing what he'd like to do to Sarah if he ever sees her again. The financial damage starts revealing itself like a horror movie where they keep showing you worse things until you're begging them to stop. The wedding venue wants their final payment. The caterer needs confirmation for the menu. The photographer is asking about timeline details. The florist wants to deliver arrangements for an event that will never happen. Every phone call is someone asking for money I don't have for a wedding that exists only in their scheduling system. I start calling vendors to cancel everything, which is like performing surgery on your own bank account with a rusty spoon. Since we're less than 30 days out, nobody's giving back deposits. The venue keeps their $4,000 payment. The caterer keeps $2,000. The photographer keeps $1,500. The band keeps $800. It's like paying for a vacation to a place that doesn't exist, except instead of getting travel insurance, I got professionally conned by someone I was planning to marry. The joint bank account situation is even worse than I expected. I log into our online banking expecting to see our normal balance, and instead I'm looking at negative $1,800. Sarah cleaned out everything we had saved, and then some. She took the money we'd been putting aside for the honeymoon, the emergency fund we built up over 2 years, even the cash we'd been saving to buy new appliances. It's like discovering that your roommate didn't just move out. They also sold all your furniture and left you with their unpaid bills. The mortgage payment is due in 10 days, and I don't have enough money to cover it. The house we bought together, the place where we plan to raise our fake baby, might get foreclosed on because my fiancé turned out to be a financial vampire with really good acting skills. I'm looking at possibly losing everything I own because I fell in love with someone who was essentially running a 2-year-long heist disguised as a relationship. My credit cards are maxed out from wedding expenses that seemed reasonable when I thought I was building a future with someone who loved me. Now I'm paying interest on flowers for a wedding that didn't happen, photography for memories that were never real, and catering for guests who ate nothing but disappointment. It's like buying insurance for a car that never existed, except the insurance company still wants their money. Family members keep calling with their own financial damage reports. My aunt flew in from Texas and can't get her plane ticket refunded. My cousin took a week off work and lost vacation pay. My brother bought a new suit specifically for the wedding, and now he's stuck with formal where he'll never use. Everyone lost money because they believed in my relationship, and now I get to be the guy who cost his entire family hundreds of dollars because he couldn't spot a con artist if she was wearing a name tag. The house feels like a museum dedicated to a relationship that never existed. Sarah's stuff is gone, but all our shared purchases are still here, mocking me with their continued existence. The couch we picked out together, the dining table where we ate fake romantic dinners, the bed where she pretended to love me for 2 years. Every piece of furniture is evidence of how completely I misunderstood my own life. I'm basically homeless because I can't afford the mortgage alone, broke because Sarah took everything, and emotionally destroyed because I just discovered that love can be faked so convincingly that you'll pay someone thousands of dollars for the privilege of believing in it. She's probably somewhere planning her next performance while I'm trying to figure out how to restart my entire existence from scratch. But here's the thing about hitting rock bottom. Sometimes it gives you clarity about what really matters. And sometimes, when you're sitting in the wreckage of your entire life, your phone buzzes with a message that changes everything. The fake miscarriage and the final straw. 3 weeks into my complete life meltdown, my phone buzzes with a text message from Sarah. The first direct communication since a robot email breakup. I'm thinking maybe she's finally ready to explain herself or apologize for turning my existence into a smoking crater. Instead, I get a message that's so cruel it should come with a warning label. The text says she had a miscarriage. Just like that. No context, no emotion. Just a cold announcement that our baby is gone. But here's where it gets really special. Sarah doesn't just tell me about the miscarriage, she blames me for it. According to her text message, the stress I caused by trying to contact her and figure out what happened led to her losing the baby. So not only am I the guy who got abandoned 3 weeks before his wedding, I'm also apparently responsible for killing my own child through the audacity of wanting answers. Reading that message feels like getting hit by a truck that backs up to make sure it finished the job properly. The pregnancy was the shit on, the one thing about our relationship that I thought might still be real, the one connection between us that couldn't be completely fake. Now Sarah is telling me it's gone, and somehow it's my fault for having the nerve to be confused when my fiancé vanished without explanation. The blame game aspect of this message is so outrageous it would be funny if it wasn't happening to me. Sarah disappears for 3 days, refuses to answer her phone, comes back to pack like a robot, breaks up with me via email, and then claims that my perfectly reasonable response to this insane behavior caused enough stress to end a pregnancy. It's like a masterclass in victim blaming taught by someone with a PhD in psychological warfare. But here's where my brain starts working differently than it has been for the past few weeks. Instead of falling apart with grief over losing the baby, I start thinking about what Sarah's mom told me about the fake pregnancies. If Sarah has done this twice before, if she's never actually been pregnant, then this miscarriage is probably just the final act of her performance. She's not telling me about a real loss. She's just adding one more layer of cruelty to make sure I'm completely destroyed before she moves on to her next victim. The realization that Sarah is probably lying about the miscarriage hits me like a freight train loaded with pure rage. She's not just a con artist who stole my money and ruined my life. She's someone who would fake losing a baby just to inflict maximum emotional damage on her way out the door. It's like discovering that your ex didn't just cheat on you. They also burned down your house and kicked your dog while they were at it. This is the moment when my sadness finally transforms into something much more useful. All those weeks of crying and wondering what I did wrong suddenly crystallize into a white-hot fury that makes me feel like I could bench press a small car. Sarah has pushed the wrong person way too hard, and she's about to find out what happens when you completely destroy someone who has nothing left to lose. The fake miscarriage text is such a calculated piece of cruelty that it actually helps me understand exactly who I'm dealing with. Sarah isn't just someone who made bad choices or got scared about commitment. She's a predator who gets off on causing maximum pain to people who trusted her. The text message isn't about grief or loss. It's about making sure I'm so broken that I never recover enough to cause problems for her. But Sarah made one crucial mistake in her psychological warfare strategy. She assumed that destroying me completely would leave me too weak to fight back. Instead, she just gave me the motivation I needed to stop being a victim and start being something much more dangerous. There's nothing quite like righteous anger to turn a broken person into someone with a very specific set of skills and an unlimited amount of time to use them. I'm sitting in my empty house looking at this text message, and I can feel something shifting inside my brain. The grief and confusion that's been paralyzing me for weeks is getting replaced by a cold, calculating rage that feels like it could power a small city. Sarah thinks she's delivered the killing blow with her fake miscarriage story, but she's actually just provided the fuel I need to become her worst nightmare. The beauty of having nothing left to lose is that it gives you incredible freedom to make choices that responsible people with normal lives can't make. Sarah has destroyed my finances, my reputation, my family relationships, and my ability to trust other human beings. She's taken everything I cared about and burned it to the ground while laughing about it. But she's also freed me from all the social constraints that keep decent people from pursuing total revenge. I start thinking about what Sarah's mom told me about her pattern, about the other victims she's destroyed, about how she's probably already planning her next con while I'm sitting here devastated by her latest performance. She's counting on me staying broken, staying focused on my own pain instead of thinking about what she's doing to other people. But Sarah has seriously underestimated what happens when you turn a basically decent person into someone with absolutely nothing to lose. The fake miscarriage text is such an obvious manipulation tactic that it actually makes me laugh, which is probably not the reaction Sarah was hoping for. She's trying to make me feel guilty and responsible for something that probably never existed in the first place. It's like being blamed for ruining a movie that was never actually filmed, except the movie was supposed to be my life and the director was a sociopath with excellent acting skills. This is the moment when I stop being the guy who got conned and start being the guy who's going to make sure justice gets served with a side of poetic irony. Sarah has spent 2 years studying me, learning my weaknesses, figuring out exactly how to destroy me most efficiently. But she's also given me 2 years to study her, and now I'm about to put that knowledge to very good use. Some people push the wrong person too far and discover that revenge requires the right tools. Lucky for me, I'm about to realize that Sarah left behind everything I need. The treasure trove of revenge materials. I start going through the stuff Sarah left behind, and it's like Christmas morning for someone whose hobby is revenge. In her rush to escape after delivering that fake miscarriage blow, she abandoned a collection of items that basically amount to a how-to guide for destroying her own life. The woman who spent 2 years planning my downfall just handed me everything I need to return the favor. First discovery is a folder tucked behind some books on our shared bookshelf. Inside is what appears to be Sarah's backup resume, and reading it is like discovering a masterpiece of creative writing. According to this document, Sarah has worked at accounting firms that don't exist, has certifications from institutions I can't find online, and has references from people with phone numbers that lead to disconnected voicemails. She created an alternate reality version of herself on paper, complete with fictional achievements and imaginary professional relationships. The resume is so creatively fraudulent, it's almost impressive. Sarah claims to have managed budgets for companies that went out of business before she supposedly worked there. She lists software expertise in programs that don't exist and language skills and dialects she definitely doesn't speak. Reading through her professional qualifications is like watching someone try to build a career out of pure imagination and really confident lying. The woman turned job applications into fiction writing. But the resume is just the appetizer in this feast of revenge possibilities. Hidden in a drawer she forgot to clean out, I find Sarah's personal checkbook. Not the joint account checks we use for shared expenses, but her own private account that she apparently thought I didn't know about. Flipping through the check register is like reading the diary of a professional con artist who's really bad at covering her tracks. The check register shows payments to a company called Pregnancy Solutions, which sounds like either a medical practice or the world's most specific consulting firm. There are also regular payments to something called documentation services and a recurring charge for photo enhancement solutions. I'm looking at what appears to be Sarah's operating expenses for running her relationship scams. She's literally been writing checks to maintain her fake pregnancy equipment and forge documents like she's running a small business dedicated to ruining people's lives. Looking at these financial records feels like finding the secret manual for someone's elaborate magic trick, except the magic trick was making my life disappear and the manual explains exactly how she did it. Sarah has been paying monthly fees to maintain her con artist infrastructure while living in my house and pretending to love me. It's like discovering that your roommate has been running a meth lab in the basement, except instead of drugs, she was manufacturing fake relationships. I keep digging through her abandoned belongings and find a small notebook tucked inside a magazine. Opening it reveals what can only be described as Sarah's victim research notes. There are details about me that I forgot telling her, information about my family's financial situations, and observations about my personality that read like a psychological profile written by someone studying me for weaknesses. She has notes about my work schedule, my banking habits, and even my emotional triggers. The notebook contains similar profiles for 2 other guys whose names I don't recognize, but whose situations sound eerily familiar. One entry describes a man named Mark who works in insurance and has parents who like to help with major purchases. Another profile details someone called David who just got a promotion and has been saving money for a house. Reading these entries is like finding evidence that I wasn't Sarah's boyfriend. I was just her latest research project. Sarah's research methods are disturbingly thorough. She has notes about my social media activity, my spending patterns, and even my friends' personalities and financial situations. She's been collecting intelligence on my entire life like some kind of romantic spy gathering information for a hostile foreign government. The level of detailed observation is actually impressive if you ignore the fact that it was being used to systematically destroy my existence. But here's where the irony becomes so thick you could cut it with a knife. In her rush to escape after delivering the fake miscarriage blow, Sarah left behind all the evidence I need to expose her entire operation. She's basically handed me the keys to her own destruction while thinking she was making a clean getaway. It's like a bank robber dropping their ID card while running from the scene, except the bank robber has been living in my house for 2 years pretending to love me. The documentation in that checkbook is particularly beautiful from a revenge perspective. Every payment to Pregnancy Solutions is dated and includes memo notes about what services she was purchasing. There are checks for fake ultrasound photos, pregnancy test manipulation equipment, and something called symptom consultation services. Sarah has essentially created a paper trail documenting her entire fraud operation, and she left it in my house like a gift-wrapped present for her future destruction. The fake resume gives me everything I need to contact her current and future employers. The checkbook provides documented proof of her fraud activities. The research notebook shows her pattern of victim selection and manipulation techniques. Sarah has basically left me a complete instruction manual for dismantling her life piece by piece, and she doesn't even know she did it. Going through these materials feels like being handed a nuclear weapon by the person who just declared war on you. Sarah thought she was making a dramatic exit after delivering maximum emotional damage. Instead, she's given me everything I need to make sure her next victim doesn't exist because she won't have a next victim to target. The woman played herself so completely, it's almost artistic. I'm sitting on my couch surrounded by Sarah's abandoned con artist equipment, feeling like I just discovered I have a natural talent for something I never knew I was good at. She spent 2 years studying me, learning my weaknesses, figuring out how to hurt me most effectively. But she also gave me 2 years to observe her methods, and now I have physical evidence of exactly how she operates. Operation Payback. Time to put this treasure trove to good use and see just how creative I can get with a little payback. Job at Morrison & Associates, the accounting firm, where she's been working while running her relationship con game on the side. I call the main number and ask to speak with the office manager about a reference check for Sarah. When the manager gets on the phone, I explain that I'm conducting a background verification for a potential employer who's considering hiring Sarah for a senior position. This gets the manager's attention because apparently Sarah has been angling for a promotion. I start asking innocent questions about Sarah's work history and qualifications, then casually mention that the resume she provided lists experience at Hartwell Financial Services from 2019 to 2021. There's a long pause before the manager tells me that Hartwell Financial went out of business in 2018, a full year before Sarah claims to have worked there. I can practically hear the gears turning in this person's head as they realize their employee has been lying about her professional background. The conversation gets even more interesting when I ask about Sarah's claimed CPA certification. The manager sounds confused and says they hired Sarah as a bookkeeper, not a certified accountant, because she didn't have the credentials for a CPA position. But according to her backup resume, Sarah has been telling potential employers that she's fully certified and has been practicing as a CPA for 3 years. By the time I hang up, I'm pretty sure Sarah's going to have an uncomfortable meeting with her boss very soon. Next, I decide to have some fun with Sarah's bank account situation. Remember that checkbook she left behind with all her fraud operation expenses? Those checks have her account number on them, and there are some very interesting patterns in her spending that might be worth sharing with the right people. I call the bank's fraud department and explain that I have evidence of someone using their account to purchase fraudulent documents and fake pregnancy materials. The fraud investigator is very interested in the details I can provide about pregnancy solutions and documentation services. These companies apparently provide services that banks consider highly suspicious when they appear on customer statements. I fax over copies of Sarah's check register showing monthly payments to these organizations, along with her research notebook documenting how she uses their services to con people. The investigator tells me they'll be opening an investigation into the account holder's activities, but I'm just getting warmed up. Sarah's research notebook contains contact information for her previous victims, Mark and David. I decide to reach out to these guys and share some information about the woman who destroyed their lives. Turns out, both of them have been wondering for years what happened and why Sarah disappeared so suddenly. They're very interested to learn about her pattern of behavior and the evidence I've collected. Mark tells me he still has Sarah's old email address and some photos from their relationship. David kept records of the money he lost when Sarah vanished, including receipts for wedding deposits and travel expenses. Together, we create a comprehensive file documenting Sarah's method of operation across multiple victims. It's like forming a support group for people who got conned by the same person, except instead of just talking about our feelings, we're building a legal case. The three of us decide to contact the district attorney's office about filing fraud charges. Turns out that running the same con game on multiple victims across state lines is exactly the kind of pattern that prosecutors love to pursue. The DA's office is very interested in our documentation, especially the evidence showing premeditation and repeated criminal behavior. They tell us they'll be opening an investigation and may need us to testify as witnesses. Meanwhile, Sarah's professional reputation is imploding faster than a controlled demolition. Her accounting firm fired her after discovering the resume fraud, and they reported her to the state licensing board for claiming credentials she doesn't have. The licensing board opened their own investigation, which automatically flags Sarah's name in their database. Any future employer who checks her credentials will see that she's under investigation for professional misconduct. I also decide to have some fun with Sarah's social media presence. She's been posting photos of her new apartment and talking about fresh starts and new beginnings. I create some anonymous accounts and start commenting on her posts with innocent questions like, "Didn't you just have a miscarriage? You seem to be doing great." And "How's the wedding planning going with your fiance?" Her friends and followers start asking questions about what these comments mean, and Sarah has to start explaining why strangers are asking about a fiance and pregnancy that she never mentioned to her current social circle. The bank investigation results in Sarah's accounts being frozen pending a full audit of her financial activities. She can't access her money, can't write checks, and can't make electronic payments while they investigate her connections to fraudulent document services. Sarah loses her job, which means she can't pay for her new apartment. Her bank accounts are frozen, which means she can't access the money she stole from her victims. Her professional reputation is destroyed, which means finding new employment is going to be nearly impossible. I'm discovering that I have an unexpected talent for systematic revenge. Sarah spent all that time learning how to destroy people, but she never considered what would happen if one of her victims decided to return the favor with interest. Sometimes the best revenge is just giving someone exactly what they deserve, served with methodical precision and a side of poetic justice. All these consequences are cascading together like dominoes falling in slow motion, and I'm starting to think that maybe the legal system works better than I expected when you give it the right evidence to work with. The final downfall in sweet justice. Within weeks, the dominoes I set in motion start creating a beautiful symphony of consequences. The district attorney's office calls to tell me Sarah has been arrested on multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, and theft by deception. My revenge campaign provided enough evidence for prosecutors to build a case that even Sarah's grandmother couldn't explain away. The arrest happens at her new job, where she'd been working under another fake resume. I picture her getting handcuffed in front of coworkers while trying to explain why police are calling her a serial con artist. The trial exceeds every expectation I had for cosmic justice. Sarah shows up in court dressed like she's auditioning for the role of innocent victim, complete with conservative clothes and a hairstyle that screams responsible citizen. But the prosecution has her research notebook, her fraud documentation, and testimony from 3 different victims who all fell for the identical scam. Watching Sarah try to explain why she has detailed notes about manipulating people is like watching someone convince a jury that their meth lab was actually a science fair project. The prosecutor walks the jury through Sarah's methods step by step, using her own documentation as evidence. They display her fake resume, her payments to fraudulent document services, and her victim research profiles. It's like watching someone get convicted using their own instruction manual for criminal behavior. Sarah's lawyer tries arguing that she was confused and made poor relationship choices, but it's hard to claim confusion when you have written records of planning multiple identical cons. The testimony phase delivers particularly satisfying moments because Mark, David, and I all get to tell our stories to a room full of people paid to take us seriously. Sarah has to sit there listening to detailed accounts of how she destroyed 3 different lives, using the exact same playbook. By the time we finish, the jury looks at Sarah like she's some kind of relationship serial killer who specialized in financial murder instead of actual murder. Sarah's conviction comes back faster than a bad check at a payday loan place. Guilty on all counts, including aggravated fraud for the pattern of behavior across multiple victims. The judge sentences her to 3 years in prison plus restitution to all her victims. Watching Sarah get led away in handcuffs feels like Christmas morning, my birthday, and winning the lottery rolled into one deeply satisfying moment of cosmic justice. But the legal consequences are just the beginning of Sarah's complete life implosion. The conviction gets reported in the local newspaper because fraud cases involving multiple victims make good crime reporting. Sarah's mugshot and story get picked up by social media, where her friends and family finally learn the truth about her career as a professional relationship destroyer. The woman who spent years carefully managing her reputation discovers what happens when that reputation gets nuclear bombed by public court records. Her professional life becomes a wasteland that would make post-apocalyptic movies look optimistic. The conviction means she can never work in accounting again because financial crimes and money management jobs don't mix well in employers' eyes. Her fraud charges show up on every background check, which means most legitimate employers won't consider her for positions requiring basic trust. Sarah has essentially made herself unemployable by being too good at her con artist career. The social consequences prove almost as entertaining as the legal ones. Sarah's family finally understands why she cut her mother out of her life and the grandmother who provided sanctuary. During her cons feels betrayed and stupid for enabling someone she thought was escaping abuse. Her friends abandon her faster than rats, leaving a sinking ship once they realize they've been socializing with someone who makes career criminals look like part-time hobbyists. Meanwhile, my life starts resembling something functional again. The restitution payments help cover some of the financial damage Sarah caused, though getting money from someone in prison is like squeezing blood from a stone locked in an underground box. I sell the house and move to a smaller place I can actually afford on my own income. The stress-induced weight loss actually makes me look better, so I've got that going for me in a weird way. My family forgives me for the wedding disaster once they understand I was the victim of an elaborate criminal scheme rather than someone with terrible judgment in women. My job performance improves dramatically once I'm not spending mental energy trying to figure out why my fiancé turned into a stranger overnight. Turns out that being systematically destroyed by a professional con artist is actually a reasonable excuse for temporary work performance issues. Sarah's prison experience apparently includes discovering that other inmates don't appreciate people who specialize in destroying families and stealing money from men who thought they were in love. Even criminals have standards about acceptable crimes, and systematically ruining people's lives for money falls outside those standards. She spends most of her sentence in protective custody because general population doesn't appreciate con artists who target decent people. The parole board eventually releases Sarah after 2 years, but her post-prison life makes incarceration look like a vacation. She can't find legitimate work because of her record, can't rent apartments because landlords do background checks, and can't get basic services because everyone assumes she's going to scam them. The woman who spent years perfecting manipulation discovers that her reputation now precedes her everywhere she goes. I hear through the victim support network that Sarah tries moving to different states and starting over, but criminal records follow you everywhere in the digital age. Every time she applies for jobs or housing, her conviction shows up like a neon sign warning people about her history. She basically created a permanent advertisement for her own untrustworthiness that follows her around like a persistent ghost. The best part is knowing that every future relationship Sarah attempts will be haunted by the consequences of what she did to her previous victims. She's created a permanent reputation that makes trust impossible, which means she can never successfully run another long-term con again. Sometimes justice is just giving people exactly what they've earned through their own choices, and Sarah earned herself a lifetime of consequences that no amount of manipulation can undo. Looking back at this whole nightmare, I've learned some valuable lessons about human nature and the importance of paying attention to red flags. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong, because they're usually right even when you don't want them to be. Sometimes, the most therapeutic thing you can do is give someone exactly what they deserve, served with systematic precision and a healthy dose of poetic justice. If you're dating someone who seems too perfect, maybe ask to meet their supposedly abusive family members. You might discover some interesting things about your partner's relationship with reality and basic human decency. And remember, the best revenge isn't always getting even. Sometimes it's just making sure the truth comes out and letting natural consequences do the rest of the work for you.